This video is brought to you by Mubi, a curated streaming service showing exceptional films from around the globe. Get a whole month free at mubi.com/SpikimaMovies. When I say ever-present, what comes to your mind? Could it be a convenience store that's just around the corner? A peek of that kitchen you've never entered? The taxi ride home, the vanishing smoke, the last dance, or that 1 minute? What makes Wong Kar-wai, an acclaimed Hong Kong filmmaker, producer, and screenwriter, so special is the sense of timelessness his films exert, like that of the ever-expanding space, encapsulating our existence, overwhelming us with infinity. They challenge the notion of the time that flows and emphasize our movement as the primary cause of our temporal perception. And therefore, the characters of Wong Kar-wai never reside in their time. They blur their surroundings with movement, slowing down their perception and accelerating the world. The autonomy they display through their control over time consoles the audience, providing a gentle forecast to the path ahead and a pleasant nostalgia to the path already spent. The first 30 seconds of Wong Kar-wai's 1994 film, Chungking Express, is probably the simplest example of his unique flavor, bombarding the screen with step-printed shots, saturated colors, and a hypnotic score, but not the best example there is to offer. Yet I always say that this film is the first and the finest work to properly uncover Wong Kar-wai's true ambition. In order to elaborate on this, we should first examine the time.
人家说失恋是一个很痛苦的事情，可是我觉得没有什么。
One of the first things you'll notice when watching a film by Wong Kar-wai is the repeated use of voice-over narrations. Characters often narrate their thoughts, ideas, and even real-time on-screen events as if they belong to the past. Of course, voiceovers are inherently reflective. It's a voice that recounts a past event. Otherwise, they would occur as a present and transitory internal monologue. But in the Wong Kar-wai universe, these voiceovers act as omnipresent and omniscient beings, walking the line between diegetic and non-diegetic, jumping from one narrator to the next and keeping their origins a secret. This vague undercurrent helps construct a sense of yearning, which is a suitable tone for his films are always retrospective, a careful look back, and a despairing attempt to revive the time that has vanished. What this brings about is a story that is told within a subjective flow of time, one that is personally experienced by the characters. This concept is best illustrated in his 2003 film In the Mood for Love, which tells a delicate love story of two heartbroken individuals, Mr. Chow and Mrs. Chan. Their subtle attraction to each other is made more compelling by the fact that it's Mr. Chow's wife having an affair with Mrs. Chan's husband, and their relationship only begins as a way to cope with their grief. Throughout the film, the two seek remedy for their pain by acting as their cheating partners, simulating possible scenarios where they fall in love and start their affair. With this simple but fascinating premise, the film showcases what seems at first to be around 10 main events that happen over the course of a few weeks. Of course, the catch is that there are actually more than 60 events marked by their changing clothes and masked by the intentionally confusing edits that hide these details and stitch different scenes together as one. So who knows how much time has actually passed? And that's the point. I've stated in my past breakdown video that In the Mood for Love is essentially a celebration of life as a reflection of the past. It's a reminiscence that can omit, connect, recreate, and even slow down to a stop. The film presents various events as one and in random order because chronology has little relevance to how we experience nostalgia. In other words, the film isn't about the passage of time as much as it is about time itself. That what matters is the flowery years that have existed, not how or where they've existed. But then, does that mean that subjectivity always produces disorientation? If not, why do the stories told by the characters in Wong Kar-wai films feel so lost? Well, it's because time doesn't guide the characters through their lives in this universe. Instead, time is simply found, like landmarks, wherever the characters are, progressing from a simple manipulation to a total destruction of time flow. Wong Kar-wai's characters are always in pain from their eternal existence, stuck between the past and the present, lost in the boundless current. In his 1994 film Ashes of Time, we are greeted with a number of such characters who, in their own ways, are dealing with mournful histories. These inner turmoils are translated and represented on screen via the fight scenes, a fitting choice for a drama piece about different swordsmen. And while they demonstrate a high level of choreography and physicality, the details are purposefully obscured. The film uses slow-mo, step printing, and out-of-focus shots to hide the specifics and emphasize the mood. That whether they wish to forget or remember is irrelevant. That they are only fighting to recover the time that is now turned into ashes. Likewise, Wong Kar-wai's 1990 film Days of Being Wild discusses the agony of being faceless in time with two poetic stories. One about a couple who shares a particular minute, and another about a legless bird that, unable to land on its feet, flies until its death. The former story follows a girl named Suri-chen, who spends the majority of the film desperately trying to revive that minute spent with a man named Yuri, who is also the protagonist of the film. But unlike Suri-chen, Yuri spends the majority of the film thinking he is that legless bird, endlessly drifting about to find his true love, whom he thinks will become evident only at the end of his life. Unfortunately, an epiphany hits Yuri seconds before his death. The legless bird was dead from the start, and therefore never took off. With this bleak insight, the film returns to its opening shot, tragically hinting Suri-chen as his true love. Obsession with the past only brings vanity to the now that can be experienced. That's why there is a legless bird, and that's why it wanders. Everyone in this film walks the same earth, but lives a different time. And therefore, they are all unbearably lonely, even when face to face. Like this, every character in Wong Kar-wai's films is entangled in their own fight with time, and each fight delineated with a repeating concept, be it objects, places, stories, or even music. In Happy Together, Iguazu Falls function as the symbolic home for our protagonist, while a remake of the Turtles' 1967 tune Happy Together speaks to the complexity of his relationship. In My Blueberry Nights, the blueberry pie batters the film into one by playing both a repeating visual motif and a symbol for self-discovery and love. We see similar ideas being conveyed again in Days of Being Wild with a shot of this tropical forest, In the Mood for Love with this clock, and 2046 with the hotel room 2046. Even when there are no metaphors involved, Wong Kar-wai still utilizes simple visual cues to communicate complex ideas, like this button in The Grandmaster that speaks for Ip Man and Gong Er's mutually understood relationship. The conversion of expositions into visual metaphors and audible leitmotif not only brings romantic simplicity to the films, but also makes them that much more present, letting the viewers meditate with the characters in the same room about the same story. This bizarre sense of now and its prioritization is why Wong Kar-wai often cuts into important shots by panning, tilting, or zooming in and out rapidly, as the contrasting energy found between mobility and immobility makes everything unpredictable and, more critically, flawed, mimicking our perception of the present. Indeed, it's a juncture that cannot be kept, woefully instant and painfully apathetic, like the shots themselves. But the visual defects and instability do more than portraying the now. They are consciously planted in the films specifically in hopes of honoring our weaknesses and temporal limitations. Beyond the movement itself, many of his shots are out of focus, transition abruptly into different scenes, and even end the film without a warning. Above all, it stops other directors from copying his style because the secret ingredient is hidden from the surface. It's not about shaking your camera, it's about embracing and celebrating all shortcomings. The main thing people bring up when describing Wong Kar-wai is his step printing technique. It's surely one of the defining characteristics of his films, but the question is, why does he use them? Well, whatever his personal philosophy may be, one thing is for certain. The scenes that involve step printing technique are always chosen for a reason. At times, it instructs the audience to pay attention to what the scene is trying to communicate. In Happy Together, what could have been a banal shot of a character working at a butcher shop transforms into a poetic visualization of his change of mind that signifies the end of one era and a beginning of another. At other times, it may force the audience to stay in the moment with the characters, participating in their subjective experience through the dreamy effects of step printing. It dramatizes all substantial emotions present within the frame and transfers them to the viewers. Note that every scene with this technique plays out only as a brief instant. With the blink of an eye, the moment is gone forever. In fact, many of the step-printed footage and shots adjacent to them are either slowed down or sped up to heighten the transient nature of these shots. Objective reality comes second to immersiveness. You must let go of the critical mind and fully surrender to their almost primitive influence. Only then will you see that his shots are still real. Up close, seconds can feel like an eternity. A step back and everything will be too fast, too short. The purposeful destruction of reality is what precisely makes everything more realistic in Wong's films and why it's so nostalgic. Chungking Express begins with a story of an accidental encounter. But instead of delving into spatial or sensual details, the narrator underlines its temporal quality. The film doesn't shy away from this either. There are calendars, solari boards, expirations, and constant references to different dates all throughout the film. Clearly, it's all about time, but more glamorously, how love is found in this dimension. Both Cop 223 and the woman in blonde wig, who will be referred to hereinafter as Blonde, are going through a breakup. They're undoubtedly still processing the heartache, illustrated by Blonde's wig and Cop 223's unambiguous remark.
我们分手的那一天是愚人节，所以我一直当它是开玩笑。我愿意让它这个玩笑维持1个月。
So Blonde always keeps her wig on, and Cop 223, well, collects pineapples. I'm not gonna lie, the whole thing about the pineapples is easily one of my favorite things in cinema, but what makes this even better is its allegorical property. Cop 223 is delaying his heartache, collecting his pain and binging it in one sitting after it expires. This is precisely why he delivers that peculiar line about alcohol being a good alleviator for stomach aches.
那30罐凤梨罐头吃得我胃非常的不舒服，所以我去了一家酒吧，因为听说酒可以帮助消化。
Drink your pain away, my friend. There are countless more details you can find that further proves Wong Kar-wai's virtuosity, so I highly recommend you check out the film if you haven't, but that's not where I was headed. So yes, relationships end, struggles come, acceptance is tough, searching is tiresome, and before you know it, a new beginning is in store. All fine and dandy. But then, this happens. Pay close attention to the setting of the scenes. Is it claustrophobic, intimate, uncomfortable, or unfortunate? When we say space, we don't just mean location. Space can be a very particular area within a location that communicates an idea or an emotion. In Wong Kar-wai's case, that something is usually love. Wong Kar-wai paints his space through the eyes of his characters. Where do they stand and how far are they seeing? Where their eyes land erects the pillars of this invisible area, and their subsequent movements thicken its walls. Regular use of close-ups stress this connection in his films. Even when they're facing one another in their world, connected by their eyes, camera ultimately hinders their true connection with its movement. If the camera doesn't bother, the stare itself stays broken. And if both are in sync, the misstep comes from the characters. What a bitter life it is to have shown true love in the face of disconnect, nested in the same space but forming separate homes. If time is what causes heartache, space is what that pain yields and where it stays. As with voiceovers, the use of perspective shifts are common in Wong Kar-wai films. The shift can be fluid, like it does with Blonde and Cop 223 and Chungking Express, or it can be sudden, like in this scene of Happy Together, where it voices a random worker in the kitchen out of nowhere. While he turns out to be a crucial part of the narrative, this unexpected switch in perspective to a character we've never seen before, nearly 40 minutes into the film, was shocking to say the least. Similarly, Days of Being Wild presents and stages a character never seen before, completely out of context and right before the film ends. To be fair, Wong's original intention was to use this character as a teaser for a sequel he had in mind, so it wasn't completely random. But this sequel ends up taking a decade to come out with little resemblance to its predecessor, so call this scene a happy accident. Either way, the perspective shift grants the audience a chance to look beyond the horizon, teaching the beauty of individuality and liberating the characters from their time. This way, the stories they tell feel as if they've always existed. So why be so fixed with time when space cares for its wound? Why do we pretend as if Mr. Chow and Mrs. Chan are the only heartbroken lovers in the room? Is Wong Kar-wai criticizing our neglect by keeping its importance even more hidden? Maybe that's why In the Mood for Love begins with a pan that briefly describes Mrs. Swan's history. A space that contains time of a character we keep forgetting. Perhaps that's why the images transition with harsh jump cuts, an effort to characterize space before time, an argument for space that is responsible for capturing the fleeting nature of time. That without space, there is no time. That it's not time itself, but where time was, that guides our feet. Like the legless bird, even ashes of time eventually lands somewhere. Chungking Express begins with the story of an accidental encounter, but instead of narrating its qualities, the film remains quiet and lets the message speak for itself. As Cop 663 slowly walks towards the stationary camera, we realize that this story is all about space, and more glamorously, the coexisting space, where its location and specifics bear no meaning. Technically, this second story of Chungking Express is everything the first wasn't. The camera movement is noticeably more restrained, the shots are less chaotic, the locations are minimal and limited in number, and of course, music defines everything, including the physical space, printing their contour like sonars. But thematically, this second story is very much like the first, in that it's basically a tale about love, just with a different tone. If the first part presented the mistimed love of Cop 223 and Blonde, the second part presents the misplaced love of Cop 663 and Faye. While Cop 223 and Blonde are breathing the same air with eyes on different times, Cop 663 and Faye will gaze at each other, but from different places.
取之杀人。
If Cop 223 was looking at the expiration date on the can of pineapple, Cop 663 is looking at his apartment that once held his love. Just like how Blonde kept her wig until the end, Faye keeps her California dream until the end. Now, be mindful of the term dream, because this is indicative of the nonsensical narrative that will define not just this segment, but most of Wong's filmography. Despite many of the situations being absolutely absurd, we root for and fall in love with this fictional world, all thanks to that admirable style that turns absurdity into charm and nonsense into romance. Why burden ourselves with logic when watching a visual poem? The characters, their interactions, their lines, and their ideologies are all too surreal to nitpick. They're only human in abstraction, but not unhuman enough to feel distant. They are tangible forms of our emotions, thoughts, and experiences, and so we cling, observe, and enjoy their illogicality, rooting for their success, whatever that is.
你喺度做咩啊？
我屋企我梗喺度啦。
你屋企？
So as you see, there is something enchanting about the way the two stories are structured and interlinked. The first part, dealing with the properties of time, depicts the meeting of the two leads as a timing. Their meeting was in fact accidental, but what kept them together was their condition. They might not love each other, but they both wished to forget and restart, to rid themselves of the heartache. Radically different is the second part. This part, dealing with the properties of space, depicts the meeting of the two leads as a habit. Their meeting doesn't feel as impactful because Cop 663 has always come and occupied this space, the store. Therefore, the majority of the second story is focused not on what keeps the two together, but what keeps them apart. Contrary to Cop 223 and Blonde, it's their condition that separates them. Both Cop 663 and Faye are dreaming, and since dreams are owned only by the dreamer, they don't have any space for each other. This may sound counterintuitive since Faye clearly likes the cop, but her love is a fictional one. She only finds love in the concept, erasing the cop's lover from the apartment and taking over her spot. Her dream about California is simply transferring over to the cop's apartment. Meanwhile, the cop, who's been keeping his unresolved heartache in the form of his apartment, ironically doesn't even realize that he is slowly forgetting his past. When Faye actually takes over his dream, and when he enters Faye's dream, their worrisome dance finally stops.
呢個歌咧唔啱你聽啊，聽快隻。
佢唔理㗎啦，嚇，仲叫我交封信俾你添嘛。
Reality is not quite the same. It's only after Faye faces her dream in reality that she gets the courage to face the cop again.
點解你會喺度㗎？
Time has passed, and so have these two. Thankfully, and unlike Wong Kar-wai's other films, the cop has been waiting in the same space they first met. After all, Wong Kar-wai is a romantic. So of course, wherever, if with you. The timeless sensation of Wong Kar-wai films, which often translates to aching nostalgia about the past that may have been and a glimpse of present that never is, makes his works feel like a daydream, a pleasant distraction that renders our conscious perception meaningless and permanently marks its presence in our minds. An unforgettable fiction of reality, or maybe it's the other way around. If what Wong Kar-wai wished to say through Chungking Express is in one part whenever and in another part wherever if with you, then perhaps none of his films are about time or space, but simply about you. Nothing is for certain. But what matters is that we've seen it before. In the passing train, the ticking clock, the white sheets, and the falling rain. Where you were and where we've been, even for a brief second. And that makes it real enough. Thanks everyone for watching this video. Wong Kar-wai is a truly wonderful director. I had such a great time watching his films again for the 5th time or something. And along with it, to prep myself into writing this script, I had to watch some other great Asian slow cinema, which I did on Mubi, the sponsor for today's video. Mubi is an online curated cinema streaming service that premieres a new film every day. And since every film is handpicked, it's a great way to watch films you love and discover new films you haven't seen before. Like I said, during the creation process of this video, I watched one of my favorite movies from the director Bigan called Kylie Blues, which is available right now if you're in Canada like I am. And in Latin America, Brazil, Italy, and many other countries, they're exclusively showing new restorations of Wong Kar-wai's beloved filmography, personally overseen by the director. So definitely head over and sign up today using my link at mubi.com/Spikima movies for an extended 30-day free trial. That's mubi.com/Spikima movies. Go check it out. And again, thanks for watching.